welcome back to Sodbusty Living, and again I have a separate book channel. However, we decided since we had started like our TBR for March and a wrap up for March on Sodbusty Living, we're just going to continue for the sake of consistency and having all of the videos here just to put our middle grade March wrap ups on this channel. But I will leave in the description box below the book channel that we have pretty much decided to move all book related content to, and this is just going to keep us going till the end of March. Go ahead, Miss Emma. Well, remember, okay, since you opened that conversation, I have a larger stack here, but I had already began these and it just took me a little bit longer to finish these. So just think about this. I didn't start this in March, but I did finish it in March. So that's, if you think about that. And then middle grade March is just easy to kind of fly through books. And I do have one DNF.
Okay, you want me to start or what?
Go for it.
So I finished this book called Broken Strings on Monday, and I really enjoyed this. This is definitely a book I want to own and I would reread. This is about a girl, I gotta remember the name, Shirley. Her family is Jewish. Her father was part of the, what is it?
Resistance.
Yeah, no, not Resistance.
Gestapo?
Starts with like an H. Anyway, her father was part of like the Nazis where they had to be taken to a certain camp, and her grandfather doesn't like to talk about it. I think I said father in the beginning, but it's grandfather. Her grandfather doesn't like to talk about it. And then when she was in the attic looking for things for a play they're doing, Fiddler on the Roof, I should say, she finds a violin that used to be her grandfather's, and she takes it down and she's like, what is this?
Holocaust.
Yes, that's what it was, Holocaust.
He was part of the Holocaust. Okay, I was thinking something more specific. No, okay, her grandfather was part of the Holocaust.
Yes, that's what it was. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
So, she finds the violin, and he kind of like goes white, and she thinks there's a story behind it, but he won't tell the story. And then after a couple days later, he finally tells her some of it, but then he doesn't tell her the rest. And then she comes back a little later, tells her the rest of it, or not the rest of it, but a little bit more, and then...
So each time he just kind of unveils a little bit more.
And so the Fiddler on the Roof was her grandmother's favorite play, movie, whatever you want to call it.
What was the play?
And it's about her grandfather telling about the Holocaust that he never ever told anyone about. And sorry, my arm's itchy. And then there was an accident with her theater or drama teacher, I should say. Drama teacher. And then her grandfather was like, I will step in. And so he became the director. And so instead of putting off their play that they all worked really, really hard on, they continued it because of her grandfather. So, it was a really good book, and I definitely want to own this one.
Well, since we started with that, I'll do one that's similar to that. I did Making Bombs for Hitler. And this opens up with Lyda and her sister. Gosh, what is her name? Her sister's name? What? We're terrible on names.
I know.
Larissa. Her Lyda and her sister Larissa are basically kind of taken to a camp, and they're separated. And she's only 9 at this age and time, but it's better if you're older and can be useful. So she lies about her age, and she ends up kind of working through these camps that Hitler had set up. And, you know, she thought she would be safe. She's not Jew, but she's learning that it really didn't matter if you were Jew or anything else. Just Hitler had a plan, And so she ends up going to this camp pretending she's older, and basically just kind of the survival for the camp. The making bombs part isn't actually a central plot throughout the whole thing. She actually doesn't start there. She actually starts in a different sect of this camp when they find out that she's really good with needlework. And then her detailed needlework and tiny hands and stuff kind of leads her into another section of making bombs. And it's just kind of her whole life within this camp. It does touch on some of the horrors, some of the things that might be triggers for younger readers. I would say this is like maybe upper middle grade. Some of the things that might be harder for the kids is like these younger kids, they were pretty much just hauled into the hospital, and like everybody's like, you stay out of the hospital. They know that the hospital is horror, but they don't really realize why until they realize that all of these younger children were basically killed for their blood. So they had their blood drawn out of them so that they could give them to soldiers on the front. So that might be a difficult thing. Our main character does kind of develop a interest in another boy, and they kind of continue this throughout the story. I think that's pretty much it. I actually thought this was really good. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did, but about halfway through it turned really heartbreaking. And
sorry, okay, so I read The Black Stallion Returns, the second book of The Black Stallion, which I am. Thank you, friend. That does not know I'm on YouTube, but thank you, friend. Our library has the entire series of this, so I got the second book. And this is about how the owner of the Black finally comes around and claims the Black. He has all the legal papers and everything. But there's also another guy who is trying to kill the Black. And so when the Black goes to India with his owner, Alec finally decides that he's going to go to India and find the Black and try again to persuade the owner if he could have the Black. So he goes to India with Henry, another guy who owned a horse, or owns a horse, or something like that. So there's these three guys. They go to India. They are hunting for not hunting, but like looking for the Black. Find the Black, and then they. Oh my gosh, my nose. Just like,
it's okay. Usually for me it's my face. Like my face gets itchy when I talk.
Something.
They're going to India.
And they
Don't
find the
spoil
horse. And then they also find the guy who wants to kill them, or kill the horse, but also wants to kill Alec.
Our main character?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And then chaos ensues.
Yeah. Very much. A lot of chaos. So, I like this one. This is also another one I would like to own. I like this one better than the first one. Anyway, so I want to get the third one and see how good that one is.
I'll talk about this one. I finished this one last night. This is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Bambit. I kind of knew a little bit about this, but I didn't know a whole lot. So in case there's others out here that maybe don't know it as much as I do. But basically, our main character, Winnie, I think. Minnie or Winnie? Winnie. Our main character, Winnie, kind of stumbles upon this young boy, and he just is drinking water from the tree, and she's like, oh, I'm thirsty, I need a drink, and he's just like, no, you are not to touch this water, you're not to drink any of this, and the mom comes into the picture, and it turns out like this water will make you immortal. And so what they end up doing is they just kind of have to explain to Winnie what this looks like and everything, and that's kind of the premise of the whole book, along with a guy that is out with evil intentions. You're not really sure what those intentions are, but it's not too hard to figure out. So this is a very short story. Like, I read it in an evening. 100 some odd pages, 139 pages. And it was a very simple, sweet story. It's like a 3-star read for me because it wasn't like gripping. It was just how I described it on Goodreads, and I was so proud of myself for coming up with the words that I really wanted. It's like, you know, a little bit of honey in your tea or a little bit of coffee in your creamer. That's what this reading experience was. It was just a little sweet read. That was kind of nice. It was a nice break throughout the day. And it kind of explored the ideas of, you know, what it would look like to never be able to die. And some of the hardships and some of the interesting things about it. And just what this little girl did to kind of protect this immortal family and help others in her wake. So it kind of goes over the course of 2 or 3 days. So it was a sweet read. I would actually say that this is I almost feel like YA or maybe upper middle grade maybe. Maybe this would be a better upper middle grade. Just because I don't know if middle grades will really get the depth that the story is presenting. But I'm going to jump in on this and say that I've decided to use this as my March book for a book recommended to me because I decided to DNF The Martian. And when I went to Goodreads to kind of mark it off as I'm just not going to read it, like, every friend of mine gives it 4 or 5 stars. I'm like, of course. But I've decided to not continue on. The first word was kind of a jolt, and then the next sentence was another jolt, and then it just is so full of language for one guy on Mars. And I was like, okay, well, I've done books with language before, I'll just keep going. But to be honest, the science in here was going way over my head. I've been told it's very simplified for those of us that don't understand it. Then I apparently just am a lot dumber than most people because it was going way over my head and I was so lost. So decided to DNF that and move on. I have so many books that I want to read.
I actually just finished this today. I Lived on Butterfly Hill. There, you can see it now. This is about 11-year-old girl named Celeste Marconi. I want to say Macaroni because that's one of her friends calls her Macaroni. Anyway, her family and a girl named Nana Delfina. Nana Delfina, that's the word. And even though she's just a random lady that lives with them. But
Nana usually means like somebody that helps out with the kids.
kind of. Her grandma just invited her into her house because the Delfina needed like a place to live, and then she kind of became one of the family. Anyway, so they all live together in a house in Chile. But then the Nazis come and it gets really bad to the point where she needs to go to the United States with her aunt.
The Nazis?
Or the Germans.
Wow, I had no idea that the Nazis or Germans went to Chile.
So that's something about like
no
the Germans
idea.
and stuff.
Maybe you read it. I don't know. I just had no idea that the Germans had gone that far.
So she goes to live in Maine with her aunt, and she ends up living there for 2 years, and then they get the final call that the one commander and whatever dude,
Commander-in-Chief?
I guess maybe, he died, and so they could come home and everything would be okay. But also before she left, her mother and father had to go in hiding because they were helping homeless people because they were doctors. And so it was getting really bad that they had to leave. And so when she gets home, she thinks her parents will be home, but they're not.
Did you just spoil the book for people?
I hope not. I'm so bad. I'm used to like narrating the entire book. And then she goes home to Chile and has to try to find her parents.
Has to bring her family back together.
Yes.
Is she an only child?
Yes, she's an only child. And so now she is 13 years old after living 2 years in Maine.
With whom?
With her aunt.
Right. Got it. And that can go into my to-be-read pile. Because I'm interested in that.
It was on Hoopla. I read it.
Yes.
It was like an audiobook, but then I would sometimes read it, and then I would go back to the audiobook and sometimes read it. If I was doing school, I would read it. If I was doing my chores, I would read it. Or doing the audiobook version.
A book that I began and finished this week for middle grade March was The Girl Who Drank the Moon. It starts out very fairy tale, and I did not think I was going to like this. It starts out with very dystopian, and the village has to sacrifice the youngest child to this witch that lives in the woods. So every year these elders of the town basically lead a procession to drop off the youngest baby born that year to this stump in the middle of the woods for the witch to eat. Now, what the townspeople don't know is that the elders of the town know that there is no such thing as a witch. They just make it up so that they can basically hold the town in bondage of fear and worry. Those are actually very key points there. And, but on a flip coin of this, there actually is a witch. And she learns that these babies are just left on the same day every year. And so she goes and rescues these babies and feeds them starlight and basically gives them new homes in this other village. As our story opens up, Luna is a baby that is found in the woods. The witch takes her back home, but instead of feeding her starlight, she actually fed her the moon, which will give her high magical powers. And basically she kind of turns into a witch. Now, that whole opening, I'm just like, this is not my story at all. But it got really interesting as the witch kind of tries to protect Luna from basically herself and these magical powers. I actually also really liked the whole village story aspect of this because it was very child dystopian kind of introduction without being so heavy and so dark. The mother that had to give up Luna is basically locked into a tower and called crazy and weird, or just crazy and mad. And one of the boys that is basically part of this growing up and to be an elder decides that this is not what he wants to do and kind of walks away and decides that he wants to be a carpenter. And his kind of story starts being more involved as he grows up and marries somebody, and they're just kind of figuring things out, and Luna is kind of a part of this whole picture. I gave this like 4.5, 5 stars. I don't remember which one I gave it, but it was really good, and it surprised me how much I really enjoyed this. I was shocked. I did not expect to like this, especially with that opening. There is a bog, which is a monster, Glurk, and he is philosophical and funny, and he and the witch just banter back and forth. It's amazing. And then there is a little dragon in here called there's a little dragon Furion, and he's kind of one of those reapy sheep kind of characters. He is hysterical, he's tiny, he's mighty, he's just so much fun. I will
kind of like Mushu.
Yeah, he's just fun. There was one thing about this book that made me, it's at the end of the book. And so they're wrapping everything up. And honestly, when they're wrapping everything up, I'm just like, wrap it up already, because it just kept going on. But I'm actually going to read word for word. Not everybody is going to be offended by this. But I just had a really big problem with it. Where are we? She asked. Glurk smiled. In the beginning, there was the bog. And the bog covered the world. And the bog was the world. And the world was the bog. It's like a word for word of John 1:1. That just really bugged me. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. And I'm surprised at how much I really enjoyed it. I did do this one on Hoopla. It is on Hoopla. And the person that reads it does a phenomenal job. I actually read it in a day. Sundays are my big work day. I just put the audio in my ear, have a 6-hour work day with the computer and all. I did it. Really great job.
Next one I DNF'd was called Mountain Pose. This book is kind of like the one book, How to Speak Dolphin. She is very sassy, mean, and her family dislike the one grandma in here that died. And so after like 40 pages maybe, I was like, yeah, this is just not the book for me. She was similar to the one girl in How to Speak Dolphin. So I was like, no.
Since we're talking library books, I did The Space We're In by Katya Balin. And we'll talk about ratings in a minute. Sorry. Hello. Hi.
You kill me.
I got this book from the library, even though I have a stack of middle grade books that I need to read, because this is about a boy named Frank. He is 10, but his brother Max is autistic, and Frank is having a hard time kind of reconciling himself to being 10 with an autistic brother. Basically, he's not the brother that his parents kind of hyped up when, you know, they're like, you're going to get a brother and you're going to be able to do, and it's not that. They're actually kind of enemies. Frank has to like protect all of his stuff from his autistic brother, and it's just kind of, I wanted an idea of the whole family dynamics with autistic kids, because I actually have a ton. I have dear friends and family in my life that have autistic children, and I have watched a lot of the struggles that they deal with, and I kind of wanted a like first person perspective or sibling perspective, especially since the author also had an autistic brother. I believe she works with autistic children. No, I think she did. I think there was something in here about one of her siblings being autistic. I don't quite remember that for sure. There's a couple of books with autistic storylines that, so I might be getting confused. But anyway, this is a very short book. One of the things that I thought was brilliant about this book is that Max, our 10-year-old, is a very smart Frank. Thank you. Frank is very smart. Very smart. And one of the things that he likes to do is he likes to do coding. He kind of wants to create the code for the universe. And so each chapter opens up with these numbers, and then you use the spiral wheel at the beginning to kind of figure out what the titles are chapter. So I thought that was a really fun element put in here. And the first half of the book, I just didn't like it. I had a hard time picking this up to read. We're giving it through Frank's perspective, and he's just not a likable character. And I really struggled with this because I wanted to be understanding. I wanted to be, I just kind of wanted that glimpse that could make me understand and be sympathetic towards unlikable characters, but I really just didn't like him. The mother is exhausted. You could definitely see that in the pages. The dad is kind of like, mom knows what to do, and Max, the autistic kid, will only work with mom, and so dad's not a part of it. But yeah, there was just a lot of elements that I was like, I don't like this. Like, why is it seeming like for this 10-year-old that this just now began, when we've known that he's had this for 5 years with his brother, but it felt like it had just began for him. Things that just doesn't quite add up were kind of stumbling for me. When we open up, Max is kind of getting ready to go to school for the first time. So that's kind of like a countdown. and then we have like our book climax, and then we have another countdown of it. Now, once that climax happened, you kind of began to see this family in a different light, and you kind of had more empathy and sympathy toward them. Like, it was tugging your heartstrings, but to the point that I was like, I don't know if I would want a younger kid reading this. I don't know. It was one of those that might have been dancing on the too dark lines for me. There's a lot of depression in here. Not that those kids don't go through that, and might be nice to have somebody kind of walk through with them, but I don't know. It was kind of, it almost felt like it was too old for this story. So I have mixed reviews on this. I think I gave it 2.5 stars. It was okay. Like I said, I liked the second half a lot better, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. So there's that one. You have a stack for the library.
And then the next book I read was Wings of Fire, Book 1. This is also another one that was kind of hard to understand what they were doing, and then it just started getting more boring and meh. And so I was like, yeah, I feel like I have more books that I would like to read.
Well, I have Paperboy. This won the Newbery Honor. This is YA. This isn't middle grade. And, this one gives me mixed feelings as well. This is about, we don't really know his name for a long part of it, Victor Volmore. It's about an 11-year-old boy named Victor who has a paper route one summer while his friend is working on his grandparents' farm. And Victor has a terrible stutter. And so it's kind of this boy and his paper route and how he grows as a person with this stutter. And you have your bully in here. He comes home to his black maid servant and his mom and dad, but he and his, he's more close with Ma'am, the black lady that comes to work with him, or to work for the family, and he just kind of bonds to her and they discuss a lot of things. And there is another character in here who is kind of an evil alley man, and Ma'am knows him, so there's kind of like this, I can't think of how to put it, but he's just another character that plays a part in the story. And then you have the people along the route that Victor has to collect from, and those people on the route kind of influence him in different ways. There is a woman that he feels very sorry for, a housewife who is an abused wife, but she likes to be liked. And that was kind of my opening to this book, was that he is trying to practice saying words. So for him, he finds it easier if he does something while he says the word. And so he's throwing the paper while practicing pitch. It doesn't sound like that to the woman that is on the porch. And she's like, what did you call me? So I had this on audio and I was like, nope, this is not the book to do for audio, especially with kids around. So there's that. And then there is some language in here. But that woman, basically he learns how to type these letters as apology, as note carriers, or as a paper carrier, and kind of just apologize and explain the situation. He finds it easier to type. This whole book is basically him typing his experience this summer. So that's our first character. Our second character is this family where the boy is in front of the TV all day and he's just trying to make connections with this boy that just basically sits in front of the TV all day. And then a third character in here is this philosopher. And the philosopher character is probably one of my favorites. It was a very interesting story. I did like the kind of stutter elements that people that they were trying to work through, especially as somebody that knows people that have stutters, especially when he kind of talks about how people just don't know how to behave around them. and some are impatient and some are just kind of like sickly sweet patient, where they're like, come on honey. And anyway, so I thought that was really interesting. What I didn't like is that this is an 11-year-old boy, and he basically gets obsessed over the one housewife. And he starts kind of like writing her name and imagining her, and at one point he calls her the dessert of the evening. It's like, this is wrong for an 11-year-old boy. So didn't like those aspects of it, but interesting, but not gonna keep this book. So I do have 3 more books here. I did finish Fathers and Sons. It ended excellently. It ended the way I wanted it to, which reminds me, Tuck Everlasting. It ended the way I wanted it to. I wasn't sure that it was going to, but I did, and I probably have a lesser, what is the word, opinion on that. I don't know if it's the popular opinion, but it ended the way I wanted it to. And same thing with Father and Sons. There is just some things in here that really got my goat, and it all worked out well. The author did a phenomenal job on this. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. Like, it wasn't maybe 4 stars. I think I might have bumped it to 4 because I thought it was more towards 4 than 3. But he made some really good points in here, and he did it in a way, it's just, yeah. That was an interesting one. Julie Clausen, which is a Christian fiction writer. This is The Bridge to Belle Island, and basically the story behind this is there is a murder, and all of the clues point to this woman that has lived on the island and has never left the island. She's scared, she's terrified to leave this island because every person in her family that does ends up dying, and so she sees it as this cursed. The lawyer that has been burned by being taken in by a woman and her beauty, basically is like, I'm never going to get burned again. He goes to the island to kind of prove that she's done it, and basically ends up falling in love. Then we've got some other things that begin happening. I'll be honest, the mystery aspect of this was not all there, but the mystery aspect really wasn't a mystery to me. I kind of figured it out pretty early on, knew what was going on, just didn't have all the details in place for other things. And yeah, it was a 3-star read. It was very fun, kind of quick moving, but ready to move on. And then this one has taken me since I think I started this back in December to read. This is the Coffee Club Mysteries. This is written by 6 different women, and it centers around a coffee shop and just different mysteries that happen in the town. And I think this is also another Christian fiction, and this would be a really fun one for like book clubs, to kind of take one little story at a time and do kind of a book club story around. Some of them have recipes with them, and yeah, they were fun, they were lighthearted, nothing that I disliked or loved about it, just kind of one of those nice little cream to your coffee kind of reads.
Get that one.
I love you. Okay, that's our wrap up.
Oh, let me get these. Oh,
that's a lot of book. Okay, that's it for this week's wrap up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. But DNF in that one.
And I got 7.
Woo! We are rocking it. And then
actually no, 6. I'm currently reading number 7.
My current audio is Absolutely Truly, also on Hulu. This is actually Hoopla, thank you. This is actually really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. I didn't realize this was the author of the Mother-Daughter book club, which is another book I want to read. So, okay, we're gonna wrap it up there. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have another cup of coffee
Or tea.
and read another chapter.